We're working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Hello and welcome to ASEAN in Focus. I'm Alma Angeles delivering to you the latest news in and around the ASEAN region on today's headlines. Indonesia's disaster agency warned of more deaths after torrential rains pounded the Jakarta region, triggering floods and landslides that killed at least 29 and left vast swaths of the megalopolis underwater. Thai authorities are warning 31 provinces to prepare for severe drought this year. Singapore's economy, a closely watched barometer for the rest of Asia's export-driven countries, grew just 0.7% last year as the U.S.-China trade war hammered global markets. Indonesia's disaster agency warned of more deaths after torrential rains pounded the Jakarta region, triggering floods and landslides that killed at least 29 and left vast swaths of the megalopolis underwater. Take a look.
Sampai nggak bisa mengungsikan kendaraan, jadi sangat prihatin lah.
Ya, pertama kita udah hafal dengan sebelumnya, tapi ini kok tidak menduga melebihi yang sudah lalu gitu. Tapi untuk keadaan emergensi memang kita sudah antisipasi. Jadi kemana saya harus menyelamatkan diri, saya sudah siap.
Tens of thousands fled to temporary shelters across the capital region, home to some 30 million, with scores of houses damaged in the deadliest flooding in years after torrential rains on New Year's Eve. Rescuers used inflatable boats to evacuate residents trapped in their homes, including children and seniors. At least 26 people died in Greater Jakarta, while 3 more were killed by flash floods in neighboring Libak Regency in the south of Java Island, according to the local disaster agency. Police in Libak said Thursday they were searching for as many as 8 people who could still be missing. Around Jakarta, an 8-year-old boy killed in a landslide and an 82-year-old pensioner were among the confirmed victims. Others died from drowning or hypothermia, while one 16-year-old boy was electrocuted by a power line. The disaster marked Jakarta's worst flooding since 2013, when dozens were killed after the city was inundated by monsoon rains. Jakarta is regularly hit by floods during Indonesia's rainy season, which started in late November. Authorities said that some 31,000 people had been evacuated, but that figure did not include residents in Jakarta's satellite cities. Indonesia will send 2 more ships to strengthen its defense in the disputed Natuna waters following trespassing by Chinese Coast Guard vessels a few days ago. This is according to the country's Maritime Security Agency. On Monday, Jakarta had protested to Beijing over the presence of a Chinese Coast Guard vessel in its territorial waters. Speaking in Beijing on Tuesday, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Geng Shuang had said China had sovereignty over the Spratly Islands and their waters, and that both China and Indonesia have normal fishing activities there. In a sharp rebuke, Indonesia's foreign ministry called in a statement on Wednesday for China to explain the legal basis and clear borders regarding its claims on the exclusive economic zone as based on the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Seas, or UNCLOS. But Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Geng Shuang said at Thursday's regular briefing in Beijing, said, quote, whether Indonesia accepts it or not, it cannot change the objective fact that China has rights and interests in relevant sea areas. Jakarta has repeatedly clashed with Beijing over fishing rights around the Natunas, detaining Chinese fishermen and expanding its military presence there. Natuna waters are believed to hold significant reserves or undiscovered oil and gas and serve as a crucial passage for commercial shipping. Incoming Armed Forces of the Philippines, or AFP Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Filimon Santos, is expected to continue the campaign to neutralize terror groups in Sulu and help implement the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. He's expected to pursue the drive to neutralize the remaining local terrorist groups in Sulu, Basilan, and Central Mindanao and carry on the implementation of the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, which is now in its incipient stage, according to AFP spokesperson Marine Brigadier General Edgardo Arevalo in a message to reporters on Thursday. Arevalo said the AFP lauds President Duterte's appointment of Santos to the command's highest post. Santos, a member of the Philippine Military Academy class of 1986, also commanded the Nueva Ecija-based 7th Infantry Division before his appointment to the Eastern Mindanao Command last January. Santos will replace General Noel S. Clement, a member of PMA class of 1985, who will retire from the service on January 5 after reaching the mandatory retirement age of 56. Meanwhile, Thai retailers kicked off 2020 with a ban on single-use plastic bags. And they joined the battle against throwaway carriers in the Southeast Asian nation, where citizens go through an average of 8 every day. The move, taken on Wednesday by several major mall operators and the 7-Eleven convenience stores, will see customers instead paying a small fee for a reusable bag made of a cloth-like fabric. Thailand is one of the largest contributors to ocean pollution, with plastic bags recently turning up in the stomachs of dead marine mammals like dugongs and green turtles and prompting national soul searching. While Greenpeace's Pitchmud Rugrod said the move by the retailers was a good start, she said it was not enough to solve the plastic crisis. The country will continue to produce plastic packaging and lacks a proper waste management policy, she said, while reusable bags are typically made out of a fabric spun from microplastic. Meanwhile, some shoppers were unimpressed at having to pay for the new bags.
You have to give the consumers or the plastic user time. You cannot just change it over, let's say, in 1 or 2 months. It will take time, but eventually it will go away.
It's not going to be easy for everyone. Right now, people will be upset, but I think they will change over time. There will be a change.
The European Commission estimates some 70% of plastic waste clogs the world's oceans, killing a range of species from turtles, seals, whales, and seabirds to fish and shellfish. Meanwhile, the Bangkok Post reports that authorities are warning 31 provinces to prepare for severe drought this year. Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha has warned people to brace themselves against serious drought, which is expected to start this month and last almost half the year. When questioned on how to provide water resources for drought-stricken villages, the Prime Minister said the government has ordered provincial administrations across the country to dig wells to tap waters from aquifers. Thailand is combating severe drought, which the Thai Meteorological Department, or TMD's Acting Director General, Kornwari Sitichivapak, said would be the worst in 4 decades. The Provincial Waterworks Authority, or PWA, said that drought might affect 61 water production facilities covering 82 districts of 31 provinces, 15 in the northeast, 9 in the north, 6 in the south, and 1 in the east. The facilities have already begun digging wells to tap underground water as an alternative source, according to the PWA.
visiting the Philippines, Manila or Quezon City is a popular destination. But oftentimes the hustle and bustle of the city can be more stressful on your vacation. So when you feel the need to reconnect to nature or relax again, there's a beautiful oasis just outside of the city called the Garden at Ciudad de Victoria. Some of the species that you can see here include hydrangea, snapdragon, and stargazers. They're truly beautiful. The gardens at Ciudad de Victoria are so peaceful, tranquil, and beautiful that it's become a haven for young couples and a very popular venue for engagement photos. The next time you want an escape from the big city, the garden at Ciudad de Victoria is a wonderful place to visit.
Singapore's economy, a closely watched barometer for the rest of Asia's export-driven countries, grew just 0.7% last year as the U.S.-China trade war hammered global markets. The city-state has traditionally been the first among Asia's economies to be affected during a downturn, and the country narrowly escaped tipping into recession in the third quarter. This marks the worst growth performance for Singapore since the global financial crisis, DBS Bank economist Irvin Saya said in a note referring to the downturn that began in the late 2008 and lasted well into 2009. Last year's growth was weighed down by manufacturing, a key economic pillar which contracted 1.5% last year due to output declines in main exports such as electronics. President Donald Trump's announcement that the U.S. and China will sign a partial new trade agreement in the middle of next month has stoked optimism about improved global trade this year. Singapore is due to unveil its national budget for this year in February, with observers closely watching for signs of general elections widely expected to be held within months. The Malaysian government will ensure the digitalization of the economy will not leave anyone out of the mainstream of development, Minister of Finance Lim Guang Eng said at a tech conference on December 30. The Vietnam news agency said, citing a report of the Malaysian Statistics Department, Lim said the digital economy is expected to contribute more than 21% to the country's gross domestic product or GDP in 2022. He said the budget 2020 will allocate 450 million Malaysian ringgit or nearly 110 million US dollars for the e-wallet program to speed up e-payment. To spur the digital economy, the government will also invest 21.6 billion Malaysian ringgit to implement the National Fiberization and Connectivity Plan, which would expand access to high-speed broadband internet at reasonable cost. The Department of Labor and Employment will implement a partial deployment ban on overseas Filipino workers to Kuwait. Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello III made the announcement following the death of Filipino domestic helper Jeneline Villavende. Mr. Bello said under the partial deployment ban, the deployment of new OFWs will not be allowed. The partial deployment ban on overseas Filipino workers to Kuwait also covers returning household service workers. He said the partial deployment ban can become a total deployment ban if Villavende is not given justice. It means our government is serious in protecting our OFWs. It will be a clear message to them, Mr. Bello said. According to Mr. Bello, the Dolly was also seeking an explanation from five-star recruitment agency where Villavende complained she was being maltreated as early as September 2019. He said Villavende's family also complained she was not getting her entire pay for her work. Bello said Villavende should have been transferred to another employee following the complaint. Overseas Workers Welfare Administrator Hans Kakdak said the government would extend assistance to Villavende's family. Malacanang also said that President Duterte was outraged by the death of Jeneline Villavende. In February 2018, the Philippines implemented a total deployment ban of Filipino workers to Kuwait in the wake of reports that OFWs in the Gulf nation have suffered abuses and even died at the hands of their employers. The ban was lifted in May last year following the signing of the MOA for the protection of OFWs in Kuwait. In other news, the new and modern Davao International Airport should be completed by 2028. An indicative timeline from the Department of Transportation showed as the unsolicited proposal was recently approved by the National Economic and Development Authority or NEDA Investment Coordination Committee. Chelsea Logistics Holdings Corporation's 48.9 billion peso operate add transfer unsolicited proposal for the Davao Airport involves the modernization of the air hub down south to boost its passenger traffic to 15.1 million passengers annually. The unsolicited proposal covers reconfiguration and expansion of the terminal building, construction of parallel taxiway, improvement of airside and landslide facilities, installation of modern airport IT systems, and all activities needed to improve airport services. The proposal carries a 30-year concession period. Should it pass muster with other approvals and processes, including that of the NEDA board, and win the Swiss Challenge, Chelsea is calendared to start the project within the year. Transportation Secretary Arthur Tugade said the project is noteworthy as it will help spur economic growth in Mindanao through trade and tourism.
Watch your favorite Net25 shows on OSN channel 725, same day as the Philippines. Watch your favorite Net25 shows live and on demand anytime, anywhere on any mobile devices on OSN Play.
From Terlingua, Texas, I would like to wish our EBC viewers all around the world a Happy New Year. I'm your Eagle News correspondent, Ria Marikia, always one with 25.
Hello from Dallas, Texas. I would like to wish our EBC viewers around the world a Happy New Year. I'm Nonita Manawis, your Eagle News correspondent, one with 25.
Are you ready to count down to 2020? I'm at Times Square in New York City, and behind me are the giant 7-foot-tall numbers that will light up the top of one Times Square at midnight on December 31st. From our EBC New York family to yours, Happy New Year. I am one with 25.
Sa lahat po ng mga kapatid sa Iglesia ni Cristo sa buong mundo, mula po sa lokal ng Mississauga Distrito ng Southern Ontario, Canada, bumabati po kami ng Happy New Year po!
Mula po sa distrito ng Hong Kong, bumabati po kami sa lahat ng mga kapatid sa buong mundo ng Happy New Year po!
From Rochester, New York, have a prosperous 2020!
From ABC correspondent of Beirut, Lebanon, I would like to greet you a happy New Year. And I am one with 25.
And finally in our news, Chief Justice Diosdado Peralta expressed confidence that the reforms he has lined up for implementation during his more than 2-year term will gain momentum this coming year, 2020. A key plank of his 10-point agenda is to address the rising cases of killings involving justices and judges, ensure their swift and satisfactory resolution, and prevent more killings. Take a look. Now, Peralta is looking at the possibility of creating a security team patterned after the United States Marshal Service. Aside from continuing the programs of his predecessor, retired Chief Justice Lucas Bersamin, Peralta said part of his agenda is the elimination of backlog in the Supreme Court and in the other courts. He said this would entail requiring clerks of court to conduct a periodic inventory of all pending cases in a division and consulting the ANBank in solving the backlogs, and the automation of court processes and the incorporation of technology in trials and hearings. Likewise, Peralta said he intends to strengthen the Office of the Court Administrator in order to efficiently attend to the concerns of lower courts. His other plans include the setting up of a Judicial Integrity Board, a 24/7 help desk in the Office of the Chief Justice, and other offices for court users, improvements in the security of justice, judges and halls of justice, as well as in the procurement and bidding processes to fast-track implementation of projects. And finally, the creation of a strategy planning management unit for monitoring and evaluation of projects is also eyed in order to eliminate the so-called hoodlums in robes. Peralta said he plans to adopt a system where the court may initiate investigation of cases being handled by members of the judiciary, even if there is no complaint. In his New Year's message, Peralta said since his appointment last October 23 last year, he has been eagerly looking forward to 2020, where he would have a full year to push for his planned reforms. And finally, the digital economy of ASEAN is rapidly expanding to its millions of users, and ASEAN recognizes that MISMIS are critical to the well-being of the region and to the success of the ASEAN economic integration agenda. So the ASEAN governments are active in putting supportive policies in place and initiate regional efforts to assist MISMIS with digitalization. Take a look. All right, we'll take that up next week. And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Alma Angeles, always one with 25.